everybody, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a classic just about everyone knows, Luigi's Mansion. Let's get into it. From the very get-go, this game sets the mood. This ominous, deep, sinister voice presenting to you the Nintendo logo.
Nintendo.
Immediately followed by this eerie music that just sets the tone right for the entire rest of the game. Every time I hear this, whenever I boot the game up, it's incredibly nostalgic for me, being as how, I grew up playing this game, and I'm sure a lot of you did too. In this video, I'm going to be going through the gameplay loops, the mechanics, everything that I love, everything I hate about this game, and of course the story. So if by this point you haven't played this game and you don't want any spoilers to the story, don't watch this video. Go download the game and f***ing play it. I don't know why you haven't yet. Our story begins with Luigi walking down this path looking for the mansion that's advertised on the pamphlet for a contest that he won. He finds the mansion, and the stark contrast between the picture he has and the mansion itself is immediately obvious. The picture being a lot more bright and the actual mansion being a lot more dilapidated. When he gets there, some of the lights are on, and that shouldn't be the case because Luigi just won this mansion in a contest. Nobody should be home but him. He's cautiously creeping up the stairs slowly as this ominous music starts building. It slowly comes to a head as he opens the door. You can hear his shaky breath as he peeks in. Now, I love this cutscene. I think it's a really good introduction to what is essentially going to be your first experience in horror as a kid. The ominous tone, the mansion in the background, all of the lightning flashing, it's all just these horror tropes that are made cartoony by the style of Nintendo. And sometimes it could be kind of corny, but that's what we love about Nintendo, is the fact that they are corny. Their games are so involved in these tropes that it's almost hard to hate them for it. Now we get the first look inside the mansion. Instead of a pre-rendered cutscene, this is in-game footage with the HUD there at the bottom left, showcasing what your health bar is going to look like. Now it pans around the room inside the foyer, kind of just showing you around, giving you the introduction to the layout of the first room that you're in. Now, obviously, you're going to do some exploring, and upon looking around, you're going to find that every door is locked. I'd also like to make note of the fact that there's no sound, there's no music, all there is this ominous thumping in the background and the echo of Luigi's footsteps. I love this. Eventually, you find yourself in front of the double doors upstairs. When you try to open them, you'll hear something make a noise behind you. And upon investigating, you'll end up finding yourself going back downstairs in the foyer and seeing this apparition with a key inside of it floating there. It'll notice you there, get scared of you, drop the key, and then flee upstairs to that room that you just tried to open. Now, when you pick up this key, you're going to head upstairs to go follow the ghost. You'll use the key on the door upstairs, and another cutscene will play. It shows Luigi using the key to open the door, very slowly and shakily. And then followed by that cutscene is going to be a cutscene where the ghost reveals itself and scares Luigi. But then this really strange, tiny old man shows up and starts sucking in the ghost of what looks like a vacuum. And he's getting dragged around the room. He introduces himself as Professor E. Gadd, an active ghost hunter who's going to show you the ropes on how to progress in the game and, of course, catch ghosts. This is where you're introduced to his laboratory. It's stated here that the contest Luigi won was a contest that he himself never even entered. E. Gadd makes note of how fishy this is. He kind of acts like a mentor throughout the entire rest of the game, teaching you all the different tips and tricks that you need to make the Poltergust 3000, the vacuum that you suck up the ghosts with, function properly. He mentions how he's been living here since his 20s and the mansion just appeared a couple days ago. Actually, right before Luigi arrived. He's not sure of the circumstances of the mansion's appearance, but he does mention one thing, that a man with a red hat very similar to Luigi's entered the mansion a couple days ago and never came out. We now know what the storyline's gonna be. We're gonna have to go inside and rescue Mario. Now, I like this. It gives us a reason to actually be here. It gives us a reason to stay, even though we just got the absolute shit scared out of us. Our brother's locked in there, and we have to find a way to get him out. Cue the tutorial. Now, this is where I'm going to complain a little bit. I hate inverted controls, and there's no way to change it from inverted controls in this game. Not to mention just how slow Luigi moves with his flashlight and with his vacuum. It took a lot of time to adjust and be able to optimally use the vacuum. And considering you have to use both the light and vacuum in conjunction with each other, later on it's going to be an issue, and you'll see why. E. Gadd locks you in a room and starts spawning these ghosts and teaching you how to use the Poltergust 3000, the vacuum now strapped to your back that catches ghosts. Now, this is essential to the gameplay loop. The Poltergust is the only defense you have against the ghost. It's the reason why you're able to go through and save Mario. It's the whole reason why you're able to help out Professor E. Gadd. He himself developed it to capture ghosts and to stop hauntings. I'd also like to make note of how circumstantial it is that the mansion just so happened to appear right next to the laboratory of somebody who's been ghost hunting since their early 20s, and also had developed some sort of defense against ghosts that allows him to both catch them and turn them into paintings, which you'll see later. Now, I will give the tutorial this, the fact that it is phenomenal at explaining the basic foundation of the majority of the gameplay. You know, flashlight on ghost, heart appears, catch ghost, it's simple. It's straightforward, and I really, really appreciate that in a game. So the tutorial is simple enough, it's very quick. Catch a couple of ghosts, E. Gadd says you did a good job, there you go, boom. On to the next part of the game. Which the next part of the game is a place that I admittedly didn't spend a whole lot of time. Mainly because when I was ready to go there my save got deleted, but we'll discuss that later. I'm of course talking about the gallery. This is the place where all the portrait ghosts that you catch get displayed after you catch them, and of course finish an area. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, 116K, what is a portrait ghost? Well, let me tell you, a portrait ghost is kind of like a boss ghost. It's the named ghosts that you catch and see throughout the entire game. There's 23 of them in total, including boss ghosts. Now, I think this is an excellent time to talk about the scoring system. Now, throughout the entire game, you get money, and now this money can't be spent on anything, but what you do is you gather it up, and throughout the entire game, it's basically collecting into what is essentially your score. Now, a perfect 100% score is incredibly difficult to achieve. It is $100 million. This will give you the best ending with the best mansion at the very end. And at the very end, there's different mansions that you can unlock depending on how much money that you had. Now, during this playthrough, I only got a C, and I thought that I was doing amazing, so I can't even imagine what 100 million takes to get. Now, this adds to kind of like the replayability of the game because you can go through again and again and try to see if you can get all the different mansions with the different scoring systems. Now, these aren't mansions that you can explore, it's just a JPEG up on the screen at the end of the game, but for some reason, getting the low tier one kind of didn't scratch the itch in my little reptile brain, so I kind of want to go back through. I'm not going to, but the want is there. Now, E. Gadd is also in this room waiting for you. You can talk to him if you want to leave or if you want to get some lore on the portrait ghosts. When you talk to him, he explains that he had 21 paintings in here, but now it's a ghost town.
50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
There's some more lore that you can get from him, but nothing particularly interesting. And there's not really much else to do in the gallery, at least at this point, you know, aside from what you do most of the game. This is where I actually saw a nice little detail that you can suck up the dust that's accumulated over the years off of the carpet and off of the environment around you. I also wanted to take this time to mention that they used this game as an initial tech demo for the GameCube to show that all of these really cool things, all these particle effects, everything from seeing your reflection in the mirror to having a full 3D world to explore is possible on the GameCube, which I think is really cool. Another thing that you can do in here is knock on these statues, which if you take out your Game Boy Horror, which I'll explain here in a little bit, and take a picture of them, it'll say not to mess with them. And if you touch these statues, the wings will start moving, which is a really nice little detail. When you talk to EGAD about leaving, he'll offer to take you to either the training room or you finally get to go into the mansion, which is what we're going to be doing here. Now, I'm going to explain what the Game Boy Horror is for. So you can use the Game Boy Horror to take pictures of things around the map and get Luigi's thoughts on them, which I think is really cool because it's Luigi's thoughts and not the game telling you. You can also use this to track all the portrait ghosts you've caught, as well as how much money you have and how many of each monetary item you've gained. I'd also like to take the time to mention that the sound design for the Game Boy Horror is cool as shit. Just listen to this. Another thing that the Game Boy Horror allows you to do is check the map for the entire mansion. This immediately lets you know the layout of the whole mansion, and you get to see just how big this place is. So now we're finally heading into the mansion for the first time since the intro. This cutscene plays where EGAD is waving you off, and Luigi walks up to the mansion doors and shakily opens them. Did I mention Luigi humps everything he comes in contact with?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's an actual problem. It's something that happens from the get-go when you press the Mario button, which is A, on any interactable object in the game, such as a wall or a vase.
Oh yeah.
But the only difference is now when you hump stuff, there's a chance for money to pop out. I digress. Upon entering the mansion, you'll see a crying Toad in the corner. When you walk up to him and talk to him, he mentions how Peach sent Mario in here because of your sweepstakes, and he never came back. So when Toad came, he found it was full of ghosts, and Mario is nowhere to be found. He, like any sane individual, would be absolutely mortified at this discovery, and found a corner to sit in and weep. Luigi reassures him that he's gonna figure everything out, he's gonna find Mario, and they're all gonna get out of there, which brings a light to Toad, and also brings a light to the room. The foyer is now lit up. Just a quick side note, a little peek into what's to come. It hasn't even been 5 minutes in the mansion yet, and the ghosts are already trying to kill you murder mystery style. They straight drop a chandelier on your head, hoping it'll end Luigi's life. That shit is metal. Toad will also act as your early game save stations. We'll get into how you save it later on, but for now your only way to save is to talk to Toad. Another really neat mechanic that is technically introduced to us right off the bat is A, sucking off cloth, and B, mirrors. Now, if you take a picture of a mirror anywhere in the mansion, it'll send you back to the foyer, which is kind of like the lobby to this game. The main hub, if you will. I just kind of wish it was closer to everything else in the game. It becomes a problem later, which we'll get into. But for now, that's all you really need to know. Moving on, using the poltergust to suck up the chandelier will drop a shit ton of money and coins. Now you can go down and collect these coins, collect the money, suck all of it up, and start your journey in collecting the 100 million, which you're not going to get on your first playthrough, unless you look it up. So naturally, we're going to go back up to that room that we first started in, the one where we saw the ghosts at the beginning. And naturally, we're going to want to kick their asses and get some revenge. But you walk in there, and it's seemingly empty. There's some furniture to hump, and some candles to blow out. When you blow out the candles, a small cutscene will play in which all of the portraits will start talking to each other and threatening Luigi. Now, when I was a kid, this scene scared the shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie. Call me a coward all you want, I don't really care. I was 6, and this shit gave me nightmares. The cutscene finishes with all the rest of the candles blowing out, and the ghosts appear. Now you get to finally enact what it is Professor Egad taught you back in the training room. Again, shine your flashlight on the ghost, wait till the heart appears, vacuum up the ghost. Simple. After all the ghosts are sucked up, a chest will appear. Walk over to this chest and there's a 100% chance to hump it, and a key will come out. This key leads into the next room. You'll notice this is a very common theme throughout the entire game. Simple, effective, gets the point across. So when you pick up the key, your map will automatically open and show you which door that key goes to, which is incredibly helpful later on, because there's a couple keys that you get in the basement that lead to the top floor, and there's a couple keys on the top floor that lead back to the basement. So knowing where they lead, because the map shows you, is pretty much a necessity. I also love the little tidbits of love they put into this game, like in the cutscene for the doorknob, you can see the reflection of the key, and also Luigi's hand. Just small subtleties like that are things that make this game really, really shine. So by now you would have noticed that the music playing is accompanied by Luigi's humming. Now this changes to whistling when a room is lit up, or if you're outside, it is a harp version of the main theme. Now, Luigi's humming can also change depending on his health state, which I think is really cool too. It's a nice touch that gives extra charm to a character that, by this point, fans of Mario only knew as Player 2. After the first couple of rooms, you'll find a balcony that has a toad on it. This, of course, gives you another save station and reintroduces you to the save system in the game. You'll find a key to the hallway where you'll find your first portrait ghost as well. I'd also like to make note of, in the third room, I believe the wardrobe room, opening up one of the wardrobes will reveal a money ghost, a light blue version of the normal ghosts, and upon capturing him, he drops a lot of money. There's a couple of these in the game, and they are absolutely essential to getting a 100 million score. Before proceeding to capturing Neville, the first portrait ghost of the game, Egad pops up on your Game Boy Horror, which is going to be a recurring theme throughout the entire game, and tells you about portrait ghosts and that snapping a picture of them with the Game Boy Horror will give you clues on how to beat them. Now, I never found this very useful. As a matter of fact, every time I tried, it didn't really give me a hint, at least that I thought, but it is a neat little detail in and of itself, because as opposed to Luigi telling the player his thoughts, it's the ghost talking directly to Luigi. It's almost always mocking him, telling him that he's not going to be able to catch them, that he can't see them. In the first hallway, there's these really neat details, like false doors and how real doors will shake when you suck them with the vacuum and false doors don't move. And if you happen to open a false door, well, it pancakes Luigi against the wall in a really funny animation. This can also be frustrating though, because if you forget to check, you lose coins every time you take damage, so if it smashes you, you lose some of your points. Now, going into Neville's room, we're immediately greeted with a rocking chair that has a silhouette on it, and obviously by this point we can't see Neville. He taunts you for not being able to see him if you take a picture of him. Turning away allows him to expose himself. You'll know when this happens because he yawns, and at that point you can shine your flashlight on him, exposing his heart, and then vacuum him up. During this fight, there's also books that'll fly off the bookshelf and try to hit you. They're very easy to dodge, never too much of a threat. After defeating Neville, there's not really a whole lot in his room. You can walk up to the bookshelves and read some books on them, and they'll give you some tips and tricks. One especially talks about golden mice roaming around the mansion, which I personally never saw them, but if you do, you can suck them up and they'll give you a whole lot of valuables, just like the light blue ghosts. The key that Neville gives you opens up Lydia's room at the very end of the hallway. I actually really like this room. There's a neat quirk that Lydia has where when you open up the blinds, it plays an animation where she flies over to them and shuts them as to not ruin her hair. I think this is really neat. As she's going to go shut the blinds, that's when you can shine your light on her and capture her. I absolutely love how you can see Toad bobbing his head happily on the balcony outside, as well as the graveyard that we're going to be entering in the next part of the game. It just adds some livelihood to the experience itself. The key that you get from Lydia opens the first boss door of the game, Chauncey. He's a baby who died of an unknown illness, and all he wants to do is play with you. So, like any reasonable adult would, you go into the room, wake him up, and then immediately play dodgeball with his face. And as it goes, you pay for your insolence with immediate consequences as he transforms you into a tiny ant-sized being and starts scaring the shit out of you. The arena for Chauncey's boss fight is his crib, floating in what is essentially the void. And of course, towering above you is Chauncey, now the size of a small building, an absolute force of nature, ready to smack the shit out of you. The mechanics for this fight are really straightforward. It teaches you the fundamentals of a lot of the boss fights in the game. Dodge the rocking horses, dodge the balls, take the ball, smack the baby in the face, dodge the bouncing baby, rinse and repeat. Really easy, really simple to grasp. Really good introductory boss fight, in my opinion. There's this neat mechanic that I'm sad is never used again, where 3 balls come in and you can tell which one is the right one because the other 2 disappear. And the way you tell is the right one will bounce back to Chauncey. It's also the 3rd ball that comes out every single time. So you can basically catch that ball, and while the other ones are bouncing around, turn around and shoot Chauncey in the face with it. It's incredibly satisfying. After doing this a handful of times, you'll beat Chauncey, you'll suck him up, and a new kind of chest will spawn with an area key. You know the drill, hump the chest, get the key, move on. By this point, EGAD contacts you, and he tells you that boss ghosts actually tend to fill the Poltergust 3000 almost immediately, and asks for you to come back to the lab so you can empty it. When you get back, he shows you his greatest invention, something that he's worked 20 plus years on, the Ghost Portrificationizer, a machine that turns portrait ghosts back into portraits. A nice bit of foreshadowing is him saying it works in reverse too. We'll talk about that later, but he talks about pressing the ghosts into physical form so we can see them because right now they're invisible. This process was incredibly satisfying when I was a kid. On the end level screen, it'll show you your gold, or your score, which, like I mentioned before, you need 100 million points to get the best ending. Here you can go back to the gallery if you want to see the ghosts that you caught now put on display. This updates all throughout your gameplay. There's just one more cool little detail to throw on the pile of really cool details this game has. Going back to the mansion, the spikes on the double doors in the foyer now disappear, revealing a heart door. There's also a really cool change to the animation. It's a really subtle detail, but the unlocking animation, instead of having the regular key, is now replaced with Chauncey's key. Now you're in Area 2, the hallways. The next area brings us to a rather large segment of the game, being the first floor hallways. Now this leads us to the basement, Mr. Lug's room, the floating world windows, Melody Pianissima, Slim Bankshot, Shivers the Butler, and Madame Clairvoyant. Something really cool about this area is that you can actually hear Mr. Lug's eating outside of his room, as well as Melody playing the piano version of the theme from outside of her room. First place we're going to go is going to be down in the basement. Down here there's not really a whole lot aside from a couple rats here and there. There's a chance of a golden mouse spawning here. I never got to see one during my playthrough, but there's also a blue money ghost that gives you a sapphire once you catch him. Now when we head back upstairs, we're going to notice that every one of the doors on this floor is locked aside from one, and that's the bathroom in the back, where a new enemy is actually introduced. These are ghosts that are going to creep towards you, hold on to you, and drain your HP. And the only way that you can get them to let go is by wiggling the sticks as much as possible. Now I'm bad at this, so I kind of just fucking button mashed. Professor EGAD actually calls and tells us how to get rid of them as well. The floating world windows room starts with 6 shy guys you gotta suck the masks off of. After that it's pretty self-explanatory. And then they pop up. Now the only way to catch them is to stand on the spinning floor with them and look away from them. Eventually they'll strike a pose, and at that point you can shine your flashlight on them and catch them. Super easy, pretty self-explanatory. You'll get a key that unlocks the door to the storage room in the back. When you walk in, you'll notice there's a mirror on the wall, and in the reflection of that mirror is going to be a button. Now this is really cool because it showcases the reflections that they're able to pull off using the software from the GameCube, which again, this game was made as a tech demo for the GameCube. Anyways, after pressing the button, the wall will move back and you'll notice there's a warning poster up on the wall as well as a trapdoor on the floor. Almost kind of looks like a cage. Sucking up the warning sign reveals a button that when pressed reveals our main antagonist, the Boos, specifically King Boo. Which, by the way, how did they get trapped in the storage room if they created the mansion? The only feasible answer I could really find when I was doing research for this video was that it was a planned ambush and they locked themselves in, but I don't know if I really believe that. Egad alludes to the Boos being strong in number, foreshadowing the Boolosses fight later, which is my personal favorite fight from this whole game. He then goes on to explain how we can track the Boos using the Boo finding function of the Game Boy Horror called the Boo Radar. Now that we can finally catch them, it shouldn't be too bad if not for inverted controls, because you know, inverted controls bad. If you catch 5 Boos, which will be in different rooms that you've unlocked, you'll be allowed into the washroom in the back that earlier was locked, and in there you'll find a toad as well as a toilet that when you hump it spits out a key. Which I just wanted to add, by the way, in my first playthrough of this I did a little while back, I got soft locked at this part because all of the Boos fled to places that I couldn't actually go to, which was a thing that I didn't know could happen, but apparently is. The key that you find in the toilet leads to Madame Clairvoyant's room, where we get our first upgrade to the Poltergust, the fire element metal, essentially turning our vacuum into a flamethrower, which will be incredibly useful later. Lighting all the fires in Clairvoyant's room will spawn a key to the laundry room. Aside from Egad, she's the only friendly face we see. She helps us throughout our journey, finding Mario every time we find a new belonging of his. We bring it to her and she gives us hints as to where he could possibly be. She also lets us capture her for the greater good later on. We bring her his hat, and all she tells us is that he's still alive. You know, nothing of actual use. Lighting Shiver's candles on fire will send him into a panic where he'll go into the laundry room to put it out. You can catch him there. He drops the key to Melody's room, where if you set off all the instruments, she'll appear and test your knowledge on some Mario music. Now, I got this wrong the first time, because I know absolutely nothing about Mario trivia, but that's fine. We don't gotta talk about that. If you fail the question that she gives you, you just leave the room and come back, start the instruments back up, and she'll reappear. She'll send sheet music after you that you'll have to suck up, and after that she'll be available for capture. The next portrait ghost we encounter is Mr. Lugs, a Discord mod who ate himself into a coma, and in death continues eating. You can completely pass by this fight and leave him to his consumption, or catch him and put an end to his gluttony. In order to catch him, you have to light the candles, catch his waiters, and suck up his food, in which case he'll go into a blind frenzy and start launching flaming balls of flan at you. Pretty simple, dodge the fireballs. He works up a little bit too much of a sweat and starts fucking hyperventilating, like me after I've run fucking 15 feet. Simply suck him up at that point. In the next room, you'll find an ice ghost on the fridge you'll have to burn to death. Doing so will grant you another elemental metal, the one of water. Take this and put out the door. This will lead you outside into the backyard where we'll encounter Spooky, the best boy. He's the house guard dog and pet. There's also a plant here we can water and come back to later in the game, but we'll get to that. Spooky can be caught once a skeleton appears and you suck it up. A bone will land on the floor and Spooky will go over to go lick it, leaving himself vulnerable. After his capture, take a picture of the doghouse, and that'll take you to the graveyard, where after you clear the area, the next big boss is introduced, Bogmire. Shrouded in mystery, no one really knows who or what Bogmire is, they just know that he is ugly as shit. This boss fight is pretty straightforward as well. He summons these shadows that when sucked up turn into balls. When you shoot the balls back at Bogmire, it encapsulates him and you run over there and he's vulnerable, so you suck him up then. Pretty straightforward, but a really cool design boss fight nonetheless. Here we are starting to get a little bit into repetition though, which I'm kind of not growing fond of by this point, if that makes sense. Anyways, catch him, get the key, and we're on to the next area. Now back at the mansion, the hallway's lit up. There's still technically 2 more portrait ghosts to be caught here, but we'll get back to that. Moving on, we're out in the courtyard now. There's a couple of things that you can do out here. A toad can be found in the outhouse that bitch slaps you. If you water the planters, some money and an emerald will pop out. You can do unspeakable things to a birdhouse out here and blackmail it into giving you Mario's letter. Finally, from the well, you can hear a familiar voice screaming. Obviously, you go down there and investigate, and this is where we find King Boo's lair. You can see King Boo admiring his portrait in which Mario is trapped. We know now what King Boo's lair looks like and also the ill fate of Mario. Heading back, a hanging ghost will be laughing at us, almost taunting us because of Mario's entrapment. Sucking him up drops a key which allows us to enter the next area. Neat tip, if you suck up all the ghosts in the courtyard gets lit up. You don't need to do this, but it gives you a lot of money for doing so. Talking to Toad on the way out, he tells us that Mario has lost a glove, a shoe, a star, a letter, and his hat. Which doesn't make any sense to me because we just saw him with his hat and both of his gloves, but I digress. This was a kid's game from 2001 we're talking about here. I feel like continuity wasn't really their main priority. This next area is potentially my favorite, the upstairs. The portrait ghosts here are some of the more innovative and fun looking, and here you can find Biff Atlas, Miss Petunia, Nana, and Boolossus. There's also one more that you can find here, but we'll get into that later. You can't actually access her until later in the game. Going back inside from the courtyard, we encounter Biff Atlas, the bodybuilder. The way you start this fight is by punching one of the punching bags, aiming it directly at him. This will knock him to the floor, and he'll get really pissed off and start swinging wildly at you. The way you damage him is the exact same way you damaged him the first time. You just punch a punching bag and knock his ass out. After that, his heart is exposed, and voila, you've caught yourself a bodybuilder. Congratulations, you're an Instagram model. Upon exiting the gym, you'll find a door on your left, which I'll talk about later, and a staircase to your right. Try the door on your left, find out that it's locked, so you go up the stairs, and you'll see there's a door on fire that you need to put out with some water. Now, by this point, you should still have water as your equipped element, so go ahead and put that door out. When you enter this door, you're going to see a chest on top of a table, and if you explore the room, you'll see there's this little button on the floor. When you step on it, you'll be introduced to a new mechanic where Luigi gets sent to the ceiling and the whole world gets flipped upside down. Walk over to where the chest is, and there's another one on the ceiling. You step on it, and it brings you back to the table. This is where you find the ice medal. Now, when you get the ice medal, Egad calls you and alludes to it being used to freeze Miss Petunia out of her shower. A 12-year-old me was elated to find this out. Find your way out of the hall, and there's going to be 2 bathrooms, just as there was downstairs. The first one you enter is going to have a ghost in it that can only be killed with water. And when you do kill him, it drops a chest that spawns a shit ton of money. So very useful. On top of that, a cool little detail they added was the monsters poster on the wall. If you try to suck it up, it will damage you, and there'll be a poster of a boo on the other side that says, "Get out of here." The next bathroom is going to have Miss Petunia in it. Now, Miss Petunia was a failed Instagram model. That's why you got Biff Atlas and she didn't. That was a dumb fucking joke. Pulling back the curtain reveals what Miss Petunia actually looks like, a female version of Mr. Lugs. Promptly freeze her out of the shower and suck her up as fast as possible. And get the key to that door that we couldn't open on the first floor. Go ahead and backtrack downstairs, and before I get into the portrait ghost for this room, let me just tell you how fucking unsettled I was by that painting in the dark. Hey, Future 116 here. I know now that that's a portrait of Slim Bangshot leaning on his hand, but at the time it looked like some sort of Lovecraftian abomination. Anyways, now we're introduced to one of the portrait ghosts we missed on this floor, Slim Bangshot. And just like his name suggests, he walks around a pool table and plays pool. Slim's a pretty easy fight. He makes one rotation around the table, hits the cue ball, and then the other 3 balls go flying. You catch him, fucking dome him with them, knock his ass out, suck him up. Simple enough. There's also a blue money ghost in here. Just be sure not to botch catching it like my dumbass did. Same thing actually happened to me in Nana's room too, except instead of me just fucking it up, the little ball of yarn kept breaking my ankles. The satisfaction I felt putting Nana in the great retirement home in the sky was second to none. Let me tell you. Down the hallway a little further, there's a room with a star on the floor. There's candles that you have to light that once lit will spawn Shy Guys and regular ghosts. I cleared them out promptly and got trolled by the game with the boo that appeared in that room. bastard. Look at that little bastard escaped. I didn't even know where he went for the longest time. This gives you access to the planetarium and an incredible cutscene that shows us the moon. The walls promptly vanish, leaving us to an interstellar feeling void with a rainbow bridge leading to the moon we can now destroy with a falling star. A nice touch here is the music in this room is the music from being outside, meaning the planetarium is a completely different place entirely, almost outside of space and time. Here's where you find Mario's star that you can bring back to Madame Clairvoya. Next, we use that mirror that's in the room to fast travel back to the foyer. It's time to catch Henry and Orville, Chauncey's older twin brothers. Spin the helicopters and they pop out ready to play hide and seek. You're prompted to wait outside until they call you in. When you come in, you have to find them in 2 of 5 boxes, and let me tell you, this was a fucking nightmare, at least if you're a smooth brain like me. It took Googling how to beat these two to realize all I had to do was vacuum one and blow fire on the other. Beating them gets you Mario's shoe, our last Mario item to take to Clairvoya. We learn from her that King Boo imprisoned Mario and somehow Bowser is involved. I liked how each piece told its own story here. We finish up with Clairvoya asking us to send her back to her portrait, and like that, our only other friend aside from Egad is gone. We head up to the top floor where we encounter our first water ghost and have to put it down with ice, an easy enough room leading to my personal favorite boss fight, Boolossus. Now this fight happens on top of the roof where there's a lot of plants for you to water, and every one of those plants that you water gives you a substantial amount of money. As we near the middle of the roof, we can see a lot of Boos are forming a circle and performing a ritual while mocking Luigi. They all combine into one massive Boo who bounces around and tries to kill you. Now I love this fight. The cutscene shows you what you need to do, but doesn't exactly tell you what it is you need to do. Obviously the unicorn statues mean something, and obviously the ice ghosts coming out of them are going to be used for something. Now right out of the gate, Boolossus chases you, and your first instinct is to hide behind the unicorn. That's when we find out that the unicorn actually pops Boolossus when he hits the horn. At that point, all the Boos scatter. This is where the ice comes into play. You freeze them and suck them up, and man is it satisfying. The less Boos there are too, the more difficult this fight gets, as they tend to run away from you anytime you start blowing ice at them. I wasn't really sure what strategy to come up with for this fight towards the end, but I eventually got it done. It took me the better part of 5 to 10 minutes to do, which felt actually pretty good, because as Boo gets smaller, he gets faster. Anyways, finish sucking them up, and boom, you got your next key. You know the drill by this point. Go back to Egad, use the portrificator thing, turn the ghost back into portraits, and I really wish by this point that they added some sort of fast travel mechanic back to the attic, because man, having to trek back to the attic every single time can get a bit tedious. By now, the gallery is looking pretty full, and I haven't found much to complain about, so not too bad so far, Luigi's Mansion, not too bad. So we're finally going to circle back to that door outside of Biff Atlas's room. I didn't know this until after I looked it up. The door leading to the hallway after Biff Atlas's room, the key for it only shows up after you run on the treadmill for a couple of seconds. You know, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day. I never used that door in any playthrough before this, believe it or not, which admittedly is my mistake for never having looked it up, but to be fair, when I was a kid, I rarely ever used the internet to look up anything about these games. Moving on, when you finally make the arduous journey back to the roof and use your key acquired by Boolossus, lightning will strike the roof, causing a blackout. Egad will call and warn you that the ghosts will have the run of the place, which They sure as shit do. Every room is now infested with ghosts. The first thing you think of is the power room in the basement from earlier, but when you get down there, it's now locked. So now eventually you'll stumble across Uncle Grimly in the wardrobe room from the very start of the game. Capturing him will give you the key that you need to unlock the basement, because I guess he locked it when he came back up from that little fucking hellhole. Turning the power on grants you the key to the rest of the basement. Don't forget to catch the money ghost. Suck up the dust, catch the ghost, get the key, head back to the attic. This key leads to the room with the clockwork soldiers in it, one of the most audibly pleasing fights in the game. They ain't too bad. Walk around the room and hit the clocks, and this will activate the boss fight. After that, just suck off the winders and finish them off. Once they're gone, this leads to an elevator to the roof where you'll find some shy guys dancing around the fire, a neat little use of environmental storytelling. After disposing of them, you'll be attacked by 2 ice ghosts, which conveniently there's a fire sitting in the middle of you, so suck up the fire and use it to dispatch of them. Go to the structure on the left, loot the key, go back down, and you can use the elevator now to get back down to the clockwork room, or climb up the ladder on the other structure and drop down into the money room. Be careful though, one of the chests in the money room is full of ghosts. Finish looting and you'll get the key to the door that was previously locked on the 2nd floor. Suck off the cover of the painting, take a picture, and teleport your ass back to the foyer. Once you head back to the 2nd floor, you can now enter the room that was previously locked. You'll find some elemental ghosts and some normal ghosts in there. You know the routine? Suck them, blow them, move on. When I was a kid, Sue P used to scare the shit out of me. I remember the first time I walked in this room, I was incredibly unsettled. But it's straightforward enough. Dump water on her and catch her like any other ghost. The chest spawns on the roof, ground. Leave the room and come back and you can access the chest. Head back to the room you got the key for in the attic. Try not to get absolutely clobbered by the mazes like I did, which is a nice touch by the way. Got me. And you'll find yourself in Jarvis' jar room. Play his game where you have to freeze him 7 times, catch him and get revenge on those boos from earlier for being pricks. Down in the basement, there's a couple cool mechanics we haven't really seen yet. The first one I couldn't get to work, which was upsetting for a minute, where I had to freeze this acid river thing. Eventually it worked and let me turn off the waterfall. Still annoying though. Then down the hallway is Sir Weston, frozen within a block of ice. Light the fires and melt the ice around him to fight him. The whole time he's dropping stalagmites or tights, or the whole time he's dropping ceiling boys on you trying to kill you. I almost died here. It was rough, to say the least. Hey, remember our flower from earlier? Well, it's finally done growing and we get a golden diamond for pouring water on it one more time. Now, if you're like me and you're low on health because you suck at this game, heading back to Chauncey's room has a guaranteed heart that heals 50 hit points. So, by this point, I decided to go back and look for every boo that I missed. And man, let me tell you, this was a slog. I had no idea where any of them could have been. Eventually, I hit 48, with which I decided to go back up and fight the second to final boss, Vincent Van Gogh. Now, this is the person who's behind every single ghost who's not a portrait ghost in the entire mansion. He paints them, they come to life, they haunt rooms, and they chase you. His fight is a wave-style fight where you have to go through each and every type of regular ghost in the game before you can actually catch him. In my opinion, he is more of a boss fight than any other boss in this entire game, and he is qualified as a portrait ghost, which is just tragic. After you beat Van Gogh, you're rewarded with the key to King Boo's lair. At this point, I had 49 boos and I was at a loss. I had been literally everywhere and had no idea where the last little bastard went. Turns out, after doing a little bit of researching, there's a little fucking mouse hole in the butler's room where if you snap a picture, it takes you to a secret room full of money. And a boo. Finally, my mission was over and I was rewarded with the last golden gem, I think. I don't know, I didn't do a whole lot of research into the money in this game, I'm not gonna lie to you. Now that I have every boo, every portrait ghost, every light in the mansion is on, and I'm about 90% certain I've found most of the secrets, if not all the secrets revolving around money, it's finally time to confront Boo. As soon as you enter King Boo's lair, make sure you use your poltergust to vacuum up the chandelier so you can get the gem that's inside. King Boo's cutscene I've always thought was really cool. Looking back on it, for the time that it was made, it was an impressive cutscene. Mario slowly turning into Bowser as the room flips upside down, Bowser opening up his mouth and sucking you into the painting, spitting you out on a fucked up version of the roof. It's timeless and it's nostalgic, and it's one of my favorites. So, how is the King Boo boss fight? It's alright. It's the same thing we've done throughout the entire game, just with a little bit more jank. Catch ball, throw ball, catch ghost. There's this thing that happens around the halfway point where he puts his head on backwards by accident and ping-pongs around the room. I thought that was funny. I actually died to this fight, but we won't talk about that. Once you finally catch King Boo, Egad calls you and congratulates you and tells you to grab the painting of Mario and bring it back to his lab.
Oh yeah.
You take Mario in and Egad reverses the portrification process on him. It plays the Mario theme backwards, which I thought was a really cool touch. Egad says the mansion's vanished, but the treasures stayed, which is a pretty cool lore explanation as to where the mansion goes after all is said and done. You start portrifying the ghosts you caught, then deportrifying Mario. Now, I finished with a score of 67 million, so it is absolutely baffling to me how people finish with 100 mil and get the best ending. Anyways, the game finishes with Luigi crying, laughing at Mario, whose head is now stuck in the vent of the portrificator, which is just great. It also shows you a picture of your new mansion, and your save file gets deleted. Overall, I think Luigi's Mansion is a fantastic representation of what you can come up with for a side character of a franchise. It took Luigi, and for the first time it put him in the limelight, and in doing so created one of the most memorable experiences in gaming history. The story is coherent, consistent, and fun, aside from Mario still having his hat and gloves. He also still had both shoes on when he came out of the portrait. The gameplay loop can get a little old, but hey, that's to expect from an old game like Luigi's Mansion. All the characters from the Ghost to Egad were enjoyable and had their own distinct memorable personalities, especially like Mr. Luggs, Bogmire, and Vincent Van Gogh. It has some pretty good boss fights, some repetitive ones, and some downright annoying ones. I wish they did more with Bowser, but at the end of the day, they did what they could with what they had. I give Luigi's Mansion 4 Spookies out of 5. If you liked what you saw here today and you want to watch a brand new channel grow, why not like the video? Comment your thoughts on it and maybe even subscribe. This is my first video, and I would love for more people to see it. Let me know their thoughts on retro games like Luigi's Mansion. Keep an eye out because the next one's going to be another amazing game from my childhood. Thank you for watching, and have an incredible day.